Hello everybody, good evening, I am Cain Martin for CakeDrain Productions, and welcome to the inaugural episode of CakeDrain Reacts. This is a new podcast segment that we're going to do here on the SoundCloud CakeDrain site whenever we have something we need to react to. So this could be news dropping, this could be a trailer dropping, or maybe we just saw a movie and it's less of a review. You haven't really, reviews, you take time to really analyze something before you articulate about it. A reaction is more of just your gut instinct, emotional first reaction. And so this is kind of a little bit of both. This is both a reaction and kind of review because I've had a few days to sit on it. But this is my reaction to the Star Wars Resistance trailer that dropped Friday. It actually dropped as I was recording a lazy vlog for the CakeDrain YouTube channel. You can go check that out. And I did record a reaction, so this is based on that original reaction. I did record a short vlog reaction video shortly after the update vlog, but I felt like I was squishing too much into a small video. There was a lot I wanted to say about it, and I even said in the video that, if you want me to talk more about it on a podcast, I said, hey, you know what, scrap all that. I'm just going to go ahead and do that initially, or instead, do the long-form podcast, because that's really what I personally want to focus on moving forward with CakeDrain Productions. After doing that vlog, to be perfectly honest with you guys, I know I'm kind of going down a rabbit trail, but bear with me. After doing that vlog, I really was confirmation that the video side of things is not where my passions lay at the moment, especially with the limited amount of time that I have to sit down and record things and edit things. With podcasts, I can take the hour or so that I would be using editing a 3-minute video. I can have an hour's worth of me and a guest going in depth about a topic, and then just spending, 15 minutes editing and uploading. And so I feel it's more productive for the same amount of time. That's me personally. That's what I'm passionate about. I can talk forever, but hey, let's get back to the main focus of tonight's topic, and that is Star Wars Resistance and my reaction to the trailer that dropped. If you haven't seen the trailer, you might want to pause, go on YouTube, type it in, it'll pop up real easy, and watch it before I go into this. Might have some spoilers, light spoilers. It's got some spoilers for the Han Solo 5-issue one-shot comic, and some of the Poe Dameron comic books as well, the first 2 volumes. So spoilers for that, and maybe some spoilers on some video games. So if you're not up and current on maybe some of the other outside the movie canon of Star Wars, you might want to go and check those out. I'll give spoiler alerts before I say something specific as well. Anywho, so this trailer dropped. It gave us a good look at what the visual style of the show is going to be. Whenever they announced it, they said that it was going to be anime inspired. I took that to mean something akin to Avatar: Last Airbender, a very Americanized anime. More modern example of that would be Voltron. And whenever I watched the trailer, that's definitely a vibe that I got, even though Star Wars Resistance is going to be 3D animated. It's sort of a cel-shaded, said that backwards, cel-shaded type of animation. It's a 2D, 3D. It's very interesting. I dig it. It's very bright and vibrant and fun. It very much gives off vibes of a kid's show. But the one thing I did feel was kind of lacking was a cohesion to the trailer. It didn't feel like our first look at something. It didn't feel like a teaser trailer. It felt more like a TV spot. Now, this is going to be a TV show, but, TV spots are shorter, more random, faster-paced trailers for TV after the initial teasers and full trailers have already come out. This kind of felt like just, well, here you go. Here's just a TV spot, and that's all that they made for a trailer. So it doesn't give you a good look at the story, really. I'll get into some speculation on that in a minute. But that's one thing that I wasn't too crazy about, was the fact that, we didn't really get a good look at that. And that ties into my next point, which is there's not really a good look at the villains. Now, we know they're probably going to be the First Order, since the kind of backstory that they released when they announced it and released the synopsis is that, this kid is recruited by the Resistance to spy on the growing threat of the First Order. So, and they've already confirmed that Gwendolyn Christie is going to be coming in as Phasma. Poe Dameron's going to be played by Oscar Isaacs. I think that's awesome. Phasma will probably be how she was in the Poe Dameron comic. Once again, I'll get to the speculation a little bit more in a minute. But you don't really get a good look. There's like one stormtrooper in the trailer, and the lighting is interesting and very neon, and so people can't tell, is that a gold stormtrooper? Is it just the lighting is really shiny, but he's just a normal stormtrooper? Is that Phasma, but there's no cape? It's very interesting, and he's using a stun bolt, or a stun blast. He's not trying to shoot or kill anybody, he's trying to just stun them. But that's the only look that we get at really the villains. There's maybe some ships that could be a type of TIE fighter. It's not really, they sound like TIE fighters when they're flying. Alex at Star Wars Explained point that out. Go follow him on YouTube. His videos are great. But anywho, that's kind of what I got out of it. And at the end of it, I kind of thought to myself, am I excited? Yeah. Am I more excited than I was before initially hearing it? Not really. I'm about the same amount of excited, because I don't really feel like it gave me anything that I didn't know already. Except the look, the physical look of the show, which was already a little bit hinted at, but got a good look at it, and I really like it. It's really detailed with the ships and stuff, and I'm excited. I'm excited for Star Wars Resistance. Now, as far as the story, or maybe the type of story and plot structures we might get, or even maybe just the feel of the show narratively, what I go to as reference first is the first thing I thought of whenever I saw the trailer, because the trailer features racing very heavily. They're on this planet that's like a water planet, kind of like Camino, but sunny, and they're on this giant like platform structure, and that's where this race is taking place, and that's where our main character is racing at and getting recruited by Poe Dameron. And so immediately I went to the Han Solo 5-issue one-shot put out by Marvel. So spoilers on that, but basically the whole plot of that is that Han is sent on a mission by Leia to go and participate in this race called the Dragon Void Race. And it's really just a cover for this secret rebel mission, where he's picking up rebel informants along the way, along these stops on planets throughout the race. And so I thought, oh, okay, maybe it's kind of that idea where this race is sort of a front. The race, it's not really about the race. I mean, it becomes a race for Ozaka, I think is his name, the main character's name. He becomes kind of obsessed about the race, because he may be kind of a Han Solo-ish hotshot who's like, I know I'm trying to do my mission, I want to do both. He wants to have his cake and eat it too. So I can see that type of a story playing out. I might be totally wrong, I don't know. Now something else that I thought of, this is something I thought of before seeing the trailer, but I think is still relevant, is once I started getting into the Poe Dameron comics, I've only read the first 2 volumes, so I'm pretty behind. the comic is just about to end, but I'm several volumes behind. But once I started getting into it, I thought, hey, maybe Resistance is going to play out like this. And basically, it's like a Cold War between the Resistance and the First Order. The First Order is told by Snoke not to attack the New Republic or the Resistance unless they attack first. The same with the New Republic. New Republic is kind of like the Old Republic. They don't really see this threat that's right in front of their faces. They're like, those First Order guys, they're just radicalists way out there. They're not a threat to us. So don't mess with them. And so Leia's obviously like, they're a threat, but she has to be kind of politically diplomatic, and so it's like, okay, don't attack them unless they attack you first, but we got to figure out what they're doing because they're up to no good. And so that's definitely something, as vibes that I got even in the trailer. So it was kind of maybe a little bit more confirmation that Star Wars Resistance, is going to feature those types of plot structures. And so I think that speculation, that I think is fairly plausible, is a good segue into my less responsible speculating. Now, a great podcast to follow is Force Center Podcast on Podomatic. Go follow those guys. They're great. Ken Knapsack, Joseph Scrimshaw, Jennifer Landa. They have a phrase that they've coined, speculate responsibly. # speculate responsibly. I believe in that firmly. Speculate responsibly so that it's always fun to speculate, but those speculations shouldn't dictate how you judge what creators put out. But we're going to get into some fun speculation for Star Wars Resistance, and I'm going to go through a list of, I got 5 dark side characters. I can kind of, I'm making it black and white here, people, no gray areas. 5 dark side characters, 5 light side characters I would like to see pop up in Resistance. And on that note, I'm going to take a sip from my sparkling flavored water like a real man before we move on to this next segment. That is some good sparkling flavored water. All right, number 1, or number 5 rather, I should say, on the dark side characters I would like to see. And he's number 5 because I think he's probably the least likely. Could be wrong, but he's probably the least likely. And that is Agent Terex. So I was talking about the Poe Dameron comic earlier. Agent Terex is it works for the First Order's Security Bureau. And he is a special agent who is sent after Poe Dameron's Black Squadron, who are, causing problems for the First Order. He's a great character. He was, his backstory is that he was, well, spoilers, of course, for the Poe Dameron comic. He was a stormtrooper in the Galactic Empire, and he was at the Battle of Jakku, but him and a fellow stormtrooper survived. They ditched their armor and escaped Jakku and kind of, he kind of left the Empire. Terex wanted to go back to the Empire. He was like a loyalist, man. His friend didn't really want to, but manipulated him into thinking that, what we're doing here is for the Empire. And so they got involved in the criminal underworld, and then Terex starts to rise in power. He actually becomes like this crime lord, basically like the king of this crime planet. And it's really awesome. It's a really cool backstory. He immediately became one of my favorite Star Wars villains, especially in the comics, and definitely easily one of my favorite First Order villains, because we don't really have a cool First Order officer in any of the movies yet. Hux is kind of weaselly, Captain Kennedy's awesome, and that'll segue into my number 4, which is Captain Moden Kennedy. He's a awesome character for such a short amount of time in The Last Jedi. He, of course, is the captain of the Dreadnought in the opening space battle of the movie, and he is a former Imperial turned First Order, and he's salty. He thinks all these new kids running the First Order are just a bunch of dummies. Like, should have scrambled the fighters 5 minutes ago, And he's a great character that I think could and should easily pop up in the movie. I don't think he's less likely. He should probably be my number 3 rather than my number 4. So maybe I'll amend that as I'm talking about it. But he's alive during this time period. He was transitioned over, so it's not like he wasn't in the First Order. He was. Was he captain of a dreadnought yet? Maybe, maybe not. Who knows? I think he could pop in. I don't see him playing a huge part, but popping in for a space battle or for a cameo, easy, no problem. I think that'd be great. So that will be my number 3. So let's go rewind back in time and look at my number 4 which is actually probably about as not as likely, maybe a little bit more likely than Terex, and that is Captain Cardinal. Captain Cardinal is a character from the Phasma book. I have not read that book, but I've listened to reviews and listened to plenty of people talk about it, such as my friends at Force Center and Alex at Star Wars Explained. And I really am fascinated by the idea of this character who was sort of Phasma's rival yet equal in the First Order. They both were in charge of training stormtroopers. They had different methods. Phasma was more of the brainwashing. Cardinal was more of the motivating. And he's a really cool character. Winds up leaving the First Order. We don't know when necessarily this happens in the timeline, so I think it is possible that we could see Captain Cardinal and that it would be set during that time period before he left the First Order. But who knows? That's why I say it's probably less likely. I think Kennedy is a lot more likely. Now, I will move into my number 2, and that is Snoke. That's right, Snoke. Supreme Leader Snoke. I think we should see him at least once, or at least a little bit, like in holograms and such. Snoke should be involved. We already know that Leia's going to be involved. That's why she wasn't on my light side list. I would love to see Snoke a little bit. Once again, I don't think he should be a huge part of it, and we don't want to remove that mystique just yet. I don't think this is the way that Lucasfilm wants to tell a Snoke story, because I do believe they'll tell us that story. I don't think this is necessarily the place to tell it, but I do want to see him in the show a little bit. I don't want to just be like a mention and we never ever see him or hear from him. So at least in a hologram, I think we should and we will see him. And yes, absolutely, 100%. Now, my number one on the list is Kylo Ren / Ben Solo. Whichever form we see him in, I would like to see him in this a little bit too. Same reasoning as Snoke. I don't think we should see him a ton, but just a little bit. Just give us a little bit of a nugget, and I think that would be beautiful. Honorable mention. Sorry I didn't go as in-depth on Kylo Ren, but didn't have as much to say on that one. I think it's pretty likely, and I think we need it. But honorable mention, BB-9E. BB-9E is the evil BB-8, astromech that works for that's on the Supremacy in The Last Jedi, and basically catches our heroes and alerts security, sees, probably was like, oh, that's an astromech inside of a trash can. Nobody else seeing this? Nobody else seeing this. Okay, I'm going to go tell Phasma. I just love BB-9E. He's just this great little evil droid who conveys such character in such a short amount of time. And it's just a testament to the genius at Lucasfilm and those guys that create all these awesome characters, even the minor ones that we only see for a few minutes. All right, moving on to our light side list. This is stretched out a little bit because I had the honorable mention for the dark side. So I have 6 characters that I think that I would love to see, light side characters I'd love to see in the show. Obviously, Poe we're going to see. We know we're going to see him. Leia, we've already been confirmed. The voice actress confirmed that on Twitter. So those are out the window. These are ones that are unconfirmed. So number 5 rather. Wedge Antilles. I want to see Wedge back, an older Wedge, because we won't see him in the movies because the actor that plays him is kind of grumpy about Star Wars. But I'd love to see Wedge. We saw him in Rebels. Filoni brought him in Rebels, showed us how in canon that he joined the rebellion, and I think that's awesome. I would love to see maybe the end of his story, not necessarily his death, but maybe the end of his story, helping out the Resistance, get started, and he's like, I'm kind of too old for this, Leia. I'll help you start this up, but I'm not gonna continue to fight in it very long. Or maybe we do see his death and the conclusion of his story. I think that would be that'd be a touchy thing to do, but if somebody's going to do it, I trust Dave Filoni, even though, I know he's not the showrunner of Resistance, but he is heavily involved, make no mistake. Alright, moving on to, I guess that was my number 6, rather. Moving on to my number 5, Iden Versio. Iden Versio, if you, for those of you guys who don't know, is the main character that you play in Battlefront 2. She starts out as a Imperial Special Forces commander, Inferno Squad commander, but she winds up defecting and joining the Rebellion and eventually joining the Resistance. Now, spoilers, sorry, of course, I said at the beginning of the podcast, but spoilers, she does die in the DLC part and takes place during, leading up to Force Awakens, but this is, of course, set several years before, so I can definitely see Iden Versio popping in just for a bit to say hi. I think that would be a cool little connection. And these are, for the most part, cameos, because I do think we are going to focus very heavily on our characters. I see this being more like Star Wars Rebels, where you kind of pop them in and out, like Leia and Lando and so on. Which brings me to my number 4, which is Lando Calrissian. I would love to see Lando in this. I'm so excited to see him in Episode 9. Glad they're bringing him back. I think that's important. I don't know why he hasn't been in the last 2. I think that was a mistake. Then a little bitty, there you go. I'm not a shill. See, I have little criticisms here and there, you know. But anywho, he's just a nice wild card. You can throw him in any situation. You need somebody to kind of screw things up. Lando can screw up. We've seen him screw some things up. You want to have somebody to save the day. Lando is your man. He can save the day. He's very much, him and Han Solo have that in common, which brings me to my number 2, Han Solo. I'd love to see him in there. Maybe, since we're going to get Leia, we can get a little bit of, maybe some of the split in that relationship, some of the stuff with Ben. If we got like a moment with the 3 of them, maybe before his fall, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know how much they're going to want to focus on big characters in the show. I think they're probably going to want to keep it to our new characters, and I think that's a good move, but we could see little snippets here along the way. You never know what Lucasfilm's going to pull out of their sleeve. I'm excited. And finally, we're going to get into my number 1 character I would love to see in Star Wars Resistance. It's got to be obvious at this point, and that is Luke Skywalker. Absolutely. Whether he is marooned himself already or not, I would love to see him. We don't have to be limited to one part of the galaxy. I think even if he's still on Octo or fresh on Octo, I think we can go there and see him hanging out with the caretakers. Maybe beginning to sever his connection with the Force, because we know he at the time of the Last Jedi, he had cut himself off and didn't bring himself back until that awesome moment there before, I mean, he kind of used it the whole time. I guess it's not quite a contradiction, not to go on a little rabbit trail, but he says, he kind of cut himself off from the Force, but he said that after he had already, done the spear fish thing, and I'm like, you gotta be using the Force to do that, like you're an old man, then. So, I don't think he totally cut himself off from the Force, but I think he definitely cut himself off from a lot of it. But anyway, I'd love to see Luke Skywalker. I think it's possible. I think it's plausible. I think it might happen. And you can bring Mark Hamill in to do it. He's been doing it for Forces of Destiny, and I think that's awesome. He's definitely still carrying the torch of Star Wars. So, all right, guys. Well, that's it for my list on characters I would love to see in Star Wars Resistance. Let us know what characters you want to see in Star Wars Resistance. Let us know your thoughts on the trailer, your thoughts on what you think the story's going to be about, whether you're excited or not. I'm excited. Not to get into any of the negativity or anything. A lot of people are kind of criticizing the show already. I criticized the trailer a little bit, but that was just purely trailer editing structure. I wasn't too crazy about the presentation. What I actually saw was great. I'm excited, and I have my expectations in check. For those of you who've seen Star Wars Rebels, you know what I mean. The first season is very kiddish, very kid-targeted, and I wasn't initially turned on by it, but it grew on me. And me and my wife just recently watched through the first 3 seasons. We've watched the whole show, but we've rewatched the first 3 seasons, and I tell you what, the first season is great the second time around. Not because I have to convince myself to like it, but because you have a history with these characters. But it's supposed to grow up with you, like Harry Potter or anything else, anything else like that that's generational. The Star Wars Resistance Season 1 is going to be very kid-geared. I think the show will mature gradually as time goes on, like Rebels did, and even like Clone Wars did. And so just be patient for that good, juicy stuff. They're going to give it to us. If anything, people, kind of debate, the fan, or the movies are not as much for the fans as they are for just the general audiences. And that's true to a certain degree. But you cannot deny that the shows have great nuggets for the fans. I'm excited for Star Wars Resistance. I hope you guys are too. Either way, we're going to share our love for Star Wars and celebrate the things that we do love and focus on that and try to bring positivity and love to this fandom and to all fandoms. So that's it for me here on this wonderful first episode of CakeDrain Reacts here on the CakeDrain Productions SoundCloud. You can follow us here. Please also follow us at CakeDrain on Twitter, CakeDrain Productions on Facebook, CakeDrain Productions on Instagram. You can follow me at CainJM17 on Twitter and at Drake the True Snake on Twitter and Facebook. Also follow Drake the True Snake on YouTube. Subscribe to the CakeDrain Productions YouTube. I think that's all the things I got to plug. I'm most active on Twitter where I tweet about Star Wars stuff. You can follow me there, guys. And look for this being on the YouTube channel. At some point, I am going to post the podcasts on there, like I said before, eventually. But my focus is going to be more on the audio. Drake's doing great stuff with the videos, with his weekly Slither up on his channel, and other stuff he's going to be bringing to the channel. And we're going to have him on for mini podcasts in the future. And I got some cool Star Wars and non-Star Wars things planned for this podcast network. Thank you guys. This has been CakeDrain Reacts. I'm Cain Martin for CakeDrain Productions, and may the Force be with you always. Have a great day.